Rain was falling hard against the windows when Emily sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Her hands shook, not from the cold, but from the text message that had just come in. A single line that made her whole chest tighten. I know your secret. Meet me tonight, or everyone else will know too. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Secrets had always been her comfort. They gave her a sense of control, a way to build walls between herself and the world. But this message, was different. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about survival. She turned to her husband, Daniel, who was lying beside her, scrolling through his phone, completely unaware. His calm presence made the air around her feel heavy. Emily's throat burned as if she wanted to scream, but no words came out. Daniel trusted her, or at least, she thought he did. And if he ever found out the truth she had been hiding for years, she knew the man beside her would never look at her the same way again. Are you okay? Daniel finally asked without looking up. His voice was casual, almost careless, and that only made the weight inside her grow heavier. Emily forced a smile. I'm fine. Just tired. But she wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine in a long time. The phone buzzed again. Another message appeared on the screen. If you don't come, I'll tell him everything. Her stomach twisted. She couldn't let Daniel know. Not now. Not ever. He had already sacrificed so much to build the life they shared. Their home, their plans, their dreams. It would all collapse if the truth came out. She told herself she had buried it well, that the past would never find her. But the past doesn't stay buried. It waits, it watches, and it chooses the worst moment to come alive again. Emily slipped quietly out of bed, pretending she needed some water. She walked into the bathroom and locked the door behind her. Staring into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her face looked tired, older than her 32 years, weighed down by guilt she had never confessed. She whispered to herself, almost in prayer, not now. Please, not now. She thought back to the night everything began, the first lie she told, the first step into a life built on secrecy. She had convinced herself it was harmless, that no one would ever find out. But lies grow like roots under the ground, unseen but spreading, until one day they break through the surface and choke everything around them. The phone buzzed a third time. She didn't need to read it. She already knew what it would say. Whoever this person was, they weren't bluffing. They wanted something, and they weren't afraid to destroy her life to get it. Emily's heart pounded as she slid down to the floor, the phone tight in her hand. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she felt afraid of losing everything, not just her marriage, but the image of herself she had worked so hard to protect. Outside, Daniel called her name lightly, unaware of the storm building just a few feet away. And Emily knew, deep inside her chest, that nothing would ever be the same again. Emily grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. From the outside, her life looked normal. She had a quiet childhood, went to school, and smiled for family pictures. But behind closed doors, things were different. Her parents argued often, sometimes so loudly she would hide in her room, covering her ears. Her father believed secrets kept the family safe, and he taught Emily early that problems should never be shared outside the home. She carried that lesson into her adult life, letting silence and secrecy become her way of surviving. By the time she met Daniel in college, Emily had become skilled at hiding her true feelings. Daniel was the opposite of her. He was open, friendly, the kind of person who could talk to anyone and make them feel like they belonged. Emily admired him for that, maybe even loved him for it. But she also feared he would never accept her whole truth. When he asked her to marry him, she said yes with a smile, but inside, a small voice whispered, "He doesn't really know you." Years passed, and Emily and Daniel built what looked like a happy life together. They bought a modest house in the suburbs. Daniel worked long hours as an engineer, steady and dependable. Emily managed a small design business from home, quiet work that allowed her to avoid too many questions from the outside world. To neighbors and friends, they seemed like a perfect couple. But Emily always felt a distance, like she was performing a role rather than truly living it. She had friends, but not close ones. She always kept people at arm's length, afraid that if she let them too close, they would see the cracks in her. Even with Daniel, the man who shared her bed, she built walls. He noticed sometimes, asking her why she seemed far away, why her eyes drifted even when he was speaking. She would laugh it off, telling him she was just tired. It was easier to lie than to explain the heavy shadow of her past. At the center of her silence was a choice she had made years ago. A choice she never confessed. It was something Daniel had a right to know, but she convinced herself she was protecting him. Protecting them both. She buried it deep, working hard to keep it hidden. But no matter how deeply she pushed it down, the guilt never left her. It was always there in the quiet moments, like a whisper at the back of her mind. Her mother, now older and frail, still reminded Emily of the importance of keeping family secrets. People don't need to know everything, her mother would say, her voice soft but firm. Emily nodded along, but deep down, she wondered if hiding the truth was destroying her more than protecting her. What was at stake was more than her marriage. It was her very identity. If the truth came out, she feared she would lose Daniel, lose the life she had built, and be left with nothing but the broken girl she had once been. And yet, with the message she received, it was clear the time for hiding was running out. Emily's heart was still racing the morning after the messages. She barely slept. Daniel had already left for work when she finally stepped into the kitchen, clutching a cup of coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. Her phone buzzed again. She thought about ignoring it, but her hands moved on their own. The message was short: "You have until tonight. Meet me at the diner on 5th Street. Or he finds out." Her chest tightened. Whoever it was knew exactly how to trap her. The diner wasn't far, a small place she and Daniel used to visit when they were first dating. Whoever was sending the messages wanted to hurt her where it would sting the most, her marriage. Emily tried to calm herself. Maybe it was a prank, maybe someone from her past trying to scare her. But deep inside, she knew. There weren't many people who knew her secret, and the few who did had reasons to stay silent. Except one. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a picture appeared. A blurry photo of her years ago, sitting in a car with someone she swore she'd never be seen with again. The person beside her, Michael, was a name she tried to erase from her life. He wasn't just her ex. He was her mistake, the one person tied to the decision she had buried so deeply she thought it was gone forever. Emily dropped the cup. Coffee spilled across the floor, but she barely noticed. The past was no longer just whispering in her head, it was alive, staring her in the face. Her mind spun. Daniel couldn't know. If he saw that photo, if he asked questions, everything would collapse. Michael wasn't just an old relationship. He was the one who dragged her into a dark part of life she had escaped from. Money, lies, and a decision that left her with guilt she carried for years. If Daniel ever learned the truth about what she had done to walk away from that life, he would never forgive her. The phone rang this time. Not a text. She froze before answering. The voice on the other end was low, almost mocking. "You thought you could run forever, Emily? Meet me tonight. Bring cash, or Daniel gets the picture." Emily's knees gave out. She sank to the floor, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. It wasn't just blackmail, it was war. Whoever was behind this wasn't going to stop. She wanted to tell Daniel, to lean on him the way any wife would. But the thought of his eyes filled with betrayal cut deeper than any fear she had ever known. So she stayed silent. Her pulse thudded in her ears as she whispered, "What have I done?" The rules of her life had changed in an instant. She was no longer protecting a secret, she was fighting to keep her entire world from crashing down. Tonight, she would have to face the ghost she had been running from. And this time, there was no guarantee she would come out whole. Emily tried to keep her world from falling apart, but the pressure was eating her alive. That night, she went to the diner as the message instructed. The place looked almost empty, the neon sign flickering above the door. She spotted him in the corner booth, Michael. Older now, but his presence hit her like a punch in the stomach. His smirk hadn't changed. "You look good, Emily," he said, leaning back casually as if they were old friends catching up. "But you owe me, and I think it's time you pay." Her hands trembled. "Why now? After all these years?" "Because you made promises," Michael said coldly. "And you broke them. You left me to clean up the mess, and I never forgot." He slid his phone across the table. The photo of them together glowed on the screen. Imagine what Daniel would say if this showed up in his inbox. Emily's throat closed. "Please, don't." "Then do what I say." His eyes were sharp, unforgiving. "Money. Silence. And maybe, we spend more time together again." The words made her sick. She stood quickly, but he grabbed her wrist, his grip firm. "Think carefully, Emily. Secrets don't stay secrets forever." She pulled away and rushed out into the night, her heart racing. She couldn't breathe. When she got home, Daniel was waiting. His eyes narrowed as he asked, "Where were you?" Emily froze. She opened her mouth, but lies poured out. "I went to see Mom. She hasn't been well." Daniel studied her face for a long moment. "You didn't tell me you were going." His voice held suspicion she had never heard before. That suspicion cut her deeper than Michael's threats. For the first time, she saw the beginning of distance in Daniel's eyes. The bond they had built was cracking. Over the next few days, the tension only grew. Emily tried to act normal, but she was distracted, always checking her phone, jumping at every buzz. Daniel noticed. He asked more questions, and each time, Emily's lies stacked higher. The weight of them pressed down until she could barely breathe. One evening, while she was cooking, Daniel came into the kitchen holding her phone. "Who's been texting you?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. Emily's chest tightened. "Just work. Work doesn't send you messages at 2 in the morning, he said. Her stomach sank. He had seen them. Maybe not all of them, but enough. That night they barely spoke. Daniel slept on the edge of the bed, his back to her. Emily stared at the ceiling, feeling more alone than she ever had in her life. Michael's voice echoed in her mind. Secrets don't stay secrets forever. The walls were closing in. Daniel's trust was slipping away, and Michael's grip on her life was tightening. Emily felt trapped, torn between telling the truth and losing everything, or keeping silent and letting the lies destroy her piece by piece. And deep down, she feared the worst was still to come. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Daniel had been quiet all week, watching her with eyes that no longer looked soft, but sharp, almost searching for the truth she refused to give. Emily tried to stay calm, but her body betrayed her. Her hands shook at dinner, her voice cracked when she spoke, and every glance at her phone made Daniel's face grow darker. That night, as they sat in the living room, Daniel finally snapped. "Emily, who is it?" His voice was steady, but it carried a weight that made her chest tighten. Her throat went dry. "What do you mean?" "Don't lie to me," he said, louder this time. "I've seen the messages. I saw his name, Michael. Who is he? What does he want from you?" Emily's heart dropped into her stomach. She opened her mouth but no words came out. Daniel's voice shook now, filled with both anger and hurt. "Are you cheating on me?" Tears filled her eyes. "No. It's not like that." "Then what is it, Emily? Tell me the truth." Her body trembled. Years of silence, years of hiding, it all came crashing down in that moment. "Michael, he's from my past. Before you. I made mistakes with him. Bad mistakes. And he knows things I never told you." Daniel's face twisted. "Things? What kind of things?" Emily broke. Her voice was raw as she confessed. "I was with him when something terrible happened. There was money, illegal things. I didn't stop him. I was part of it. And when it all fell apart, I walked away. I left him behind to clean it up. I thought it was over. I thought no one would ever know. But he's back, and he's threatening to tell you everything unless I give him what he wants." The room went silent except for her ragged breathing. Daniel stared at her as if she were a stranger. The betrayal in his eyes pierced her deeper than any words could. "You've been lying to me, for years," he said slowly. "I wanted to protect you," she whispered. "No, Emily. You wanted to protect yourself." Before she could speak again, a loud knock rattled the door. Emily's blood froze. She didn't need to ask who it was. Daniel opened the door before she could stop him. Michael stood there, smiling like a predator. "Evening," he said smoothly. "I think it's time we all had a little talk." The tension snapped like a wire. Daniel's fists clenched. "You're the one who's been threatening my wife?" Michael smirked. "Wife? Oh, Daniel, you really don't know half of who she is." Emily's legs gave out as she whispered, "Please, stop." But it was too late. The lies, the threats, the years of silence, they all collided in that single moment. Daniel's trust was shattered, Michael held the power, and Emily's world, once built on secrets, finally cracked open. The life she had been trying so hard to protect was gone, and nothing could put it back together again. Emily sat frozen as Michael's words filled the room. Daniel's anger burned like fire beside her, but underneath it she could see the hurt in his eyes. For a moment, she thought she had lost everything. But then something shifted inside her. For years she had lived in fear, letting secrets control her. Now, staring at both men, she realized the only way out was through the truth. She stood, her legs trembling, but her voice steady. "No more," she said. "I won't let you control me anymore, Michael." He laughed, leaning against the doorway. "You think you have a choice? I can ruin you with one message." Emily took a breath. "Then send it. Tell the world. I'm done living in fear." Daniel looked at her, surprised. Michael's smirk faltered for the first time. He hadn't expected her to stop begging. Emily walked past Daniel and faced Michael head-on. "You may have been part of my past, but you won't own my future. I made mistakes, yes, but I won't give you another piece of my life." Michael's jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Emily said softly. "But at least it will be my choice." Daniel stepped forward, his voice cold. Leave. If you ever come near her again, I'll call the police. You're done here. Michael glared at them both, but something in Emily's eyes told him she meant it this time. He muttered under his breath, then stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Silence filled the house. Emily sank into a chair, tears running down her face. She expected Daniel to shout, to walk away, to leave her broken. Instead, he sat across from her, his face unreadable. I should have told you long ago, she whispered. I was afraid you'd hate me. Daniel didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, I don't know how to feel right now. You lied, Emily, for years. But I see you trying. I see you choosing truth now. His words cut but also healed. They sat together in the quiet, broken but not destroyed. Over the following weeks, Emily began to rebuild. She told her mother what had happened, breaking the old family rule of silence. For the first time, she admitted out loud that hiding secrets had only brought her pain. She even sought help, speaking to a counselor, learning how to let go of shame. Daniel didn't forgive her overnight. Some days he was distant, and she respected his space. But other days, he stayed close, listening as she told him the parts of her story she had buried for so long. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to find a fragile trust again. Emily also found strength in herself. She realized she didn't need to keep pretending. Her past was part of her, but it didn't define her future. By facing Michael, by choosing truth, she had taken back her power. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was real. And for the first time, Emily felt free. Weeks later, Emily stood alone in the backyard, the morning sun soft on her face. The air felt lighter than it had in years. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the silence wrap around her like a blanket. For the first time, the quiet wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with peace. Daniel stepped outside, holding a cup of coffee. He didn't speak right away, just placed it gently on the table beside her. When she looked up at him, their eyes met. His gaze was still cautious, but not cold. There was something there, fragile, but real. I don't know what the future looks like, Daniel said softly. But I see you trying. And that means something. Tears stung her eyes, but this time they weren't from shame. I'm done hiding, Daniel. No more lies. He gave a small nod, then sat beside her. They didn't need to say more. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was a space where healing could begin. Later that evening, Emily wrote in her journal, something she hadn't done in years. She wrote about fear, about secrets, about how easy it was to lose yourself when you hide from the truth. And then she wrote about freedom, the freedom that comes when you stop running. When she closed the journal, she felt lighter. The past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer owned her. She had faced it, and she had survived. As she lay in bed that night, Daniel's hand reached for hers. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a quiet touch. But it was enough. Emily realized then that her life didn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. It just had to be honest. And honesty, no matter how hard, was the beginning of everything she had been searching for. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. This was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning of a new one.